And welcome everybody to session 6 of Star Trek Euthenia, a Star Trek Adventures actual play by yours truly and the lovely people on the screen. You might notice someone new. They're not a special guest, they're a permanent cast member, but we'll get to them in a moment. Well, we hope they're a permanent cast member. If not, we'll blow up some buildings until they are a permanent cast member. Okay, FBI guy who watches me, maybe strike that last part from the record. Maybe
Don't do
just
that.
just a little bit.
No.
Yeah. Um, anyways, hi, I'm ELH. The only real thing I want to say real quick is I do just want to apologize for anybody who was sort of caught out of sorts for our sort of birthday stream we had yesterday. I do have someone coming out to do ISP stuff tomorrow morning. Hopefully we can resolve that. And don't worry, we are still going to do the Ignitrix one-shot. We are still going to do the Motley Heights premiere. Just watch Twitter. I'll tweet out whatever the schedule will be, and we'll get it done. But yeah, I'm really excited to begin play because there's a lot of cool things that we got to cover in today's session. So why don't we just get everybody to introduce themselves, starting with Mr. Aaron.
Hey guys, I am Aaron, of course, as many of you may or may not know, but if you didn't, you do now. I'm playing Captain Williams, the human captain of the Euthenia. Also Draxus on Motley Heights and Captain Cord in yesterday's Klingon one-shot. And I'm very excited for tonight.
I'm Watney. I'm playing Executive Officer Commander Stekko, the half Betazoid, half human empath.
Real quick, Watney, bump up like 1 or 2 decibels and you're good.
Okay.
You're next, Dag. On new overlay, you're next.
Oh, is that so? Sorry. Yeah, everybody. Hey, I'm Dag. I play Euthenia's resident Edosian. 3 arms, 3 legs, and no sense of humor. And yeah, if you want to talk about it, hit me up today. Yeah, just try Nexus will work.
Hey everybody, my name is Darewolf, Gaming88 on Twitter and Twitch. I play Commander Sarus. I also play Nicola T on Motley Heights, and I was the first officer yesterday, and we saved my Mima. And lastly, I'm more excited to be here than Aaron.
Hello everyone, my name is Matthew. I play Vizeth, who has yet to find rank. You'll be introduced to that character a little bit later on, so I'm not going to say what my position will be. But I'm a returning player who has been with this group during their previous 2 campaigns, in fact, previous 3 campaigns, and I'm glad to be rejoining them for this one. Alongside Darewolf, it's lovely to have you here.
And let's just say we will literally move heaven and earth to keep Matthews. So let's get started because I'm eager to get him into the game proper and everybody role playing. So I do believe.
Is this better?
Yeah, that'll work.
Okay, great.
So in terms of opening logs, I believe Mr. Aaron, Captain Williams, has the supplemental. So if you would kindly take it away.
Certainly. Captain's Log Supplemental. The Euthenia moved to investigate a local star system populated by 2 races in a state of conflict, the Demyth and the SO, after locating an ancient probe in deep space. First contact found us in the middle of a firefight between 2 carrier groups. Despite messages of neutrality, the Demyth fighters ingressed into Euthenia's airspace and opened fire on the ship. We responded with fighters to defend the ship, and the situation de-escalated quickly, thanks in no small part to Master Chief Kaj and his field leadership. After things settled down, we met with one of the SO in the conference room, a strange race of sapient jellies. I had planned to reach out to the Demyth as well, by all accounts a moth-like people. However, a new contact at the edge of the system seemed to frighten both groups, and our visitor, Squick, fled with one of my conference chairs. Both carriers headed into the system at full impulse. The large vessel we've detected seems to only have 1 life form aboard, and based on information we've gained from the probe and Squick's reaction, the vessel may be related to a race known as the Vergeron, and an ancient war in heaven that menaced this system centuries ago. We're receiving an SOS from the vessel and are moving to assist. End log.
Very nice. And I'd give you momentum, but thanks to chat, I believe you're already a cap. So good job there. But our first scene today will be on the bridge, where we also have new token art for Mr. Williams. Look at that shiny new token. Woo! But in terms of what is on the view screen is probably what's most important. So on the view screen is a space Hulk that looks to be like two crescent moons have been merged together in almost like a plus sign formation, where the actual like inner curves are lined up. So it almost forms as I said, a plus sign, almost like a claw, if you will. But because when I say Space Hulk, what I mean is parts of the wings, quote unquote, have been broken off. There's definite signs that energy weapons have pierced through the hull. There doesn't appear to be a conventional shuttle bay or a deflector dish or even nacelles. But you would detect, or at least Rash would shout over, yeah, it's got warp drive, but it's not active at the moment. They're running a... they look like they're running on backup fusion generators.
Was the last thing that we did scan for life forms and there was just one?
That is still correct, yes.
Okay.
Well, let's attempt to hail them.
So Ensign pushes the button and says, channel open, sir.
Alien vessel, this is Captain R.J. Williams of the Federation starship Euthenia. We've received your distress call and are ready to render assistance. Please respond.
Pause. And then Dorothy materializes just floating off to the side of where you're currently seated in your pit. And Dorothy just kind of crosses her arms and says, they're receiving, Captain, but they're not answering. I can at least confirm. Oh, sorry, Stetko, go ahead.
I totally interrupted you. I thought you were done with your sentence, GM.
Oh, no,
Stetko
no.
be reading is all I'm asking.
Oh, no. Actually, let's do that in character, because I think that says something about Dorothy and Stetko, where Dorothy's still figuring herself out. So maybe she says, oh, sorry, Commander Stetko, I didn't mean to interrupt. Go ahead.
She would only speak up were she to have something to say. So is she detecting any empathic signals or not from the vessel?
I would say yes, you are getting something. It's muddy, but it's something, which is, again, as a reminder, you couldn't get the SO or the Moth people. You didn't get anything from them, but you're getting something from this one.
Mm-hmm. She would relay that information. I'm not getting anything super clear, but there is certainly something else on the other side of that hail, sir.
Well, if that's the case, they may be injured and unable to answer. So, Commander, I think it's time for you to select an away team.
All right. Saras,
Yes, Commander.
you're with me.
What the fuck?
Rash, do you want to come too?
Can I, Cap?
I think in this particular instance, Commander, your engineering expertise might prove invaluable.
All right, cool. Away mission. First one with the ship. Love it.
Yeah.
Commander, I would also encourage us to bring Major Razib. If the individual aboard the vessel is injured, we may need his expertise.
Good idea. She taps her comm badge. Bridge to Razib.
You're
on
muted,
mute.
Dag, as is
Razib,
tradition.
Not reading you.
Boosting the signal, Commander.
Thank you.
Is this thing on? Hello? Hello? This is Razib.
We've got you now. We're going on an away mission. We'll need potentially medical assistance. Meet us
Oh,
in the
good.
hangar.
Tell him to bring the bandolier.
I'm already
Cap-
wearing it, Captain. You just got out of a combat situation.
And Steka would turn to Dorothy and sort of just like raise her eyebrow. Dorothy, are you up for getting off the ship?
And Dorothy looks at Rash as the GM talks to himself for a moment. Rash, is that even possible? I mean, technically, if we put you in a hollow emitter, maybe? The ship can run without you, technically. Maybe a rain check on that one, Commander.
Very
Do
well.
not push yourself any farther than you feel you must, but also do not allow yourself to be held back from new experiences. Trust me, I would know.
Raj,
Idea.
would you add it to your long to-do list, of course, to make it so that Dorothy can leave the ship and is not tethered to it at some point?
You got it, Commander. But Dorothy actually snaps her finger and goes, I got it. Where did I put that thing? Hold on. And, you see her, motioning like she's digging through garbage, like virtual garbage, and she says, haha, there it is. I'm sure this isn't a bad thing, but, Then she kind of looks at Sedko. You guys know what an exocomp is, right?
You mean the race of sapient artificial organisms discovered in the 2360s?
Exactly those. We have in storage an old burnt out one that has lost its personality matrix. I could maybe put a copy of myself in that.
I
Are you, Dorothy, are you proposing some sort of digital necromancy?
Well, now that you put it that way, I guess, yeah.
And do you realize the implications of copying yourself?
Technically there's 633 copies of myself running concurrently right now, so...
Yeah, but aren't they all integrated?
In a sense, we kind of have a common channel that we coordinate on so that we all match up when somebody says, hey, Dorothy, can you do X?
The issue with what you're proposing, Dorothy, is that you would create two completely separate individual copies of yourself. And as their lives separated at the moment, they would each have different experiences. You would no longer be Dorothy. You would be Dorothy's.
I'll keep looking on that, and I'll get with Commander Rash. And Rash at this point has, walked over from her little perch in engineering, at least on the bridge, and she's just like, yeah, we'll figure it out. There's got to be a way to make it so that you're synced across bodies, whatever your body ends up being.
Safely.
Yeah, well, we'll figure it out. How long do you think it'll be, Commander? Because if we're there for more than an hour, I'm going to need to bring some coffee.
I would say an hour would be sufficient, hopefully.
All right, bringing coffee just as a backup then.
Why don't you just pack a thermos just in case, Rash?
That's exactly what I was thinking, sir.
Well,
Did we get... So we did a jam, we did a scan of it,
Yes.
right? And there's nothing that might interfere with transporters?
No, but actually, I can inform you something that I neglected to mention at the end of last session. What you're detecting is there is a borderline Class M, Class L atmosphere, which means you should be able to survive over there without environmental suits. The hull is actually extremely similar to that of the Euthenia, meaning that it's made of things like duranium and magnesite and titanium and all sorts of things you could potentially salvage. But you're also detecting that there is some form of, I guess you would call it waste, but you're not able to get a read on what the waste is from. You're seeing some bioorganic material that reads as waste, but it's coating corridors and walls and things of that nature. But again, you're not getting a solid what is it, if that makes any sense.
And there's we wouldn't be able to detect a danger to the atmosphere from the waste or anything.
I would
it's
say that
breathable.
you would, again, based on what your sensors are returning, it should be survivable.
Okay. Away team, meet me in transporter room 1.
So, a quick little bit of movie magic later, we see the away team beaming in to the Vergeron Space Hulk. And immediately as you materialize, there are some major points of order I need to cover. So first and foremost is when you materialize in, you know how Starfleet corridors are about 2 or 3 people in width and they maybe go up maybe 9, 10 feet? The Vergeron Space Hulk is massive. And what I mean by that is you could easily fit maybe 10 people shoulder to shoulder across the corridors. The ceilings themselves are easily 2 stories above you. And what also is catching your attention is underfoot, on the walls, on the ceiling, all of it is draped or covered in these tendril biomasses that range in color from reds to purples to blacks. And there's this sickly sweet smell in the air that would remind you of rutabaga mixed with rose, mixed with blood. So it's a very strange smell, all things considered, but it doesn't make you gag so much as it just wishes or makes you wish that you had an environmental suit. But the air is still breathable. You're not having any difficulties breathing. It's just a matter of dealing with the smell is what it is.
Ugh. This is disgusting. If anyone starts feeling weird, tell Razib.
Yes, tell Razib.
Don't worry, Razib, you can tell me if you start feeling weird.
Nope, feeling fine now. Next.
I love how he just has it on his bandolier. Man, I need to get out of main engineering more. But hey, Russ, what do you make of the stuff here? Is it what is it?
Russ is this entire time has been like kind of like looking a little queasy and like covering his nose with his hand and like scratching it. I do not achoo! Whatever this stuff is, I think I am allergic to it. No, doctor, just scan me for a moment. I want to make sure it's not lethal. Achoo! Oh, it smells terrible. But I will make a scan.
Okay. Go ahead and give me a reason science, difficulty of 2. And it looks like you still do have your 6 momentum if you want to spend any.
I might as well. Let's get weird. Let's spend 1.
All right, for 3 dice. Hey, there's your 2. So what you're detecting is this is very similar to an ivy on Earth, where if you give it enough light, water, and nutrients, it'll just grow forever. But this is on a different scale than ivy. This is on a macro level, whereas ivy's kind of not micro, but it's kind of localized. It's almost the difference between, say, a regular virus and a macro virus, if you remember that episode of Voyager.
Yeah.
Yep.
Excellent.
Concerning.
Glad I stayed on the ship.
Yeah.
But there is one other thing your sensors do detect, is that you've actually beamed fairly close to where the life form is. If everything on your tricorder is coming back correctly, there's a door behind that tendril there. If you could clear it, you might be able to get inside.
And Steka would be checking for any hostile type of empathic signal from behind that door.
All right. No, nothing. Nothing hostile, just sort of a constant white noise, as it were. A presence is there, but they're not actively thinking anything.
Okay. Gotcha. So Russ, any idea what this is? These are huge. They're going to be like
Based on my
terraforming gone wrong?
They are some sort of ivy-like plant thing that, well, it is everywhere. Oh, it is horrible. Oh, I believe I can use a phaser at a low setting to cut it away.
Just a moment. Have you determined whether or not these things are tied into the ship's systems? You could cut power on all the decks.
I don't know, GM. Have I?
Haven't made that determination, but you could make it your free question.
Yeah, that's my free question.
That is the catchy thing here. If you're not careful, you might sever what is essentially an EPS conduit. So you have to be very careful when cutting.
So this isn't like an invasive
Oh no, it's still
accident.
invasive. It's still invasive.
Oh, okay. So it's become parasitic or something
Yes.
like that. Okay.
Exactly.
We might be able to initiate some kind of bioelectric pulse on their life sign setting. It's weird that that's what it says on the tricorder. Life sign setting. Who codes these things?
I do. What do you want it to say, Razib?
Bioelectric field.
All right, here, and she actually reaches up with a little electro tool and just taps your tricorder a few times, and boom, it says what you want.
So, Russ, do you think that Razib is correct that these things could be tied into the system somehow?
Yes, I believe they are acting as some sort of power conduit, but it seems more parasitic than it does complementary. Although, if I'm careful, I believe I can cut it away and we can get into the door.
Rash, are you picking up anything on what the ship is powered by? Is this...
Well, normally I like being... And she kind of rubs her neck a little bit in nervousness. You know how Romulans like using quantum singularities?
Mm-hmm.
Imagine that, but actually a good thing and not just a science experiment gone horribly, horribly wrong.
Commander, all parasites have their stimuli that they dislike. We might be able to run through a spectrum of visual and sonic frequencies to see what might deter this one and reveal the door without having to cut into it so riskily.
I like that idea. Saras, can you determine perhaps what aversion this thing might have?
I surely can track, Commander. And what would I need to roll for that?
All right, so I'll let it be that Razib and Saras, you guys are going to work together on this, so you guys can assist one another, and I'll let you two determine who's assisting whom. Razib, you're going to be approaching this from a reason medicine approach. Saras, you're approaching it from a reason science approach. The difficulty on this will be a 3.
I think you should do it, Razib, because it was your idea, and Saras would simply assist.
Sounds good. So Razib will configure the emitters on the tricorder to rotate through a series of sonic, visual, and vibrational frequencies.
Okay.
And then tie in any bioelectric responses from the vines into the specific frequency until basically it finds the combination of the most effective for that organism.
All right, so tying in the complication that chat gave earlier, I'm going to actually say that the complication range, like the full complication range, is going to be 16 to 20 here. So it's very easy to set the vines off. But again, it's your call here. You've already got an assist from Saras. So you only need to roll 2 more. And you're at 5 momentum by my count right now.
Okay. May I spend... Gosh, I keep forgetting. Is it 3 momentum for 2 more dice?
That is correct, yes.
Yes.
So put me at 5?
We would bid 4.
Sorry, math.
That happens.
And we'll go with xenobiology to first start.
Most definitely would apply here. All right, let me just check that 0, but I think you're good. Nope, that is a complication. So that's going to be a total of 6 successes, which means you get your 3 momentum right back. So you do find that the vines, the ivy, does not like ultraviolet light. However, when your tricorder goes into that part of the spectrum, there is an ungodly shriek that emanates from the vines, and it echoes throughout the corridors in a way that is, to put it plainly, it's like hearing a chorus of banshees that have been unleashed onto this unholy plane. It is not only deafening, but also even in the pit of your stomach, or stomachs to some of you, it is dreadful.
Well, let's
But
stop
the moment
that.
your tricorder stops going through ultraviolet, the noise stops.
Don't do that again.
Sorry about that. You know, no way to know with viney parasites. I don't even know how they make that kind of sound, some kind of subharmonic vibration in response to the ultraviolet spectrum.
I'm not sure I want to know.
There was a sound?
Can you hear me now? Good. Do we ultimately find the right combination, though?
Yeah, so no matter what you do, whether you use ultraviolet light, or if you use sonic, or if you use your actual phaser, the end of the day roll is going to be either a control security or a control medicine, and the difficulty here will be a 4. And you can assist each other on this, but you only get 1 assist.
You should do it. This is your
All
idea.
right.
What can I assist with?
Commander Russ, I do believe that if you set your phaser to setting 2 and power setting 4, you may elicit a sympathetic nerve vibration in the tendril, and it cause it to move out of our way.
Perfect.
Right. So, Saras, you're going to be assisting with a control science on your part in that case.
What the?
And I'm control medicine, you said?
Your control medicine, again, difficulty here is a 4, so you're going to want to spend some momentum at the
Power
very
system
least.
focus.
No, you can't have power system.
Why? It's a power system.
I'll give it to you. Sure, I'll give it to you.
Gosh darn tootin'.
It's been a long time.
And once again, I'll spend 3 momentum for those 2
Even
extra
better.
4 dice. All right. Well, already got 1 assist, so that's good news there.
Let's do it again. Boom.
All right. And that is, again, a number of successes. 5 successes overall. So, getting back, what is that, 1 momentum. You two kind of use your tricorder and phaser in conjunction, that the vines don't make the ungodly wailing sound that they just did, but they still kind of shriek a little bit. It's not like deafening, but it's still not pleasant to hear all the same. But at the end of the day, what matters is it does move out of the way of the door, which does permit you to kind of put your hands or your claws in the seam of the door and force it open. And when you do so, what you see on the immediate other side is the equivalent of a broom closet. But it's a broom closet that has a life support pod stuck into it. So this is almost like a sleeper unit. And in that unit, Matthew, why don't you describe the character as the individuals would see it?
So through the glass facing of the pod, you see an individual who is about 6'2". He's not wearing any clothing, but there are no discernible markings of gender. His skin is black and gray, leathery, and it leads up through various different bony protrusions around the shoulders and head. There's some kind of partial aperture that runs vertically along the face, with eyes on either side that are deeply sunken in behind those plates, as if they're almost like a protective shell around the head. The skull itself is spherical, and he does not seem to be injured in any way, but he still remains in that cryosleep pod, or in this life support pod.
Oh my.
And you said this was something akin to a broom closet, or just the size of one?
The size of one, more or less.
Are there similar broom closets all along the hallway?
Yes, actually. Now that you know what you're looking for, you see just this entire corridor is lined with them.
Commander, I believe that this entire corridor was or at least designed to be some sort of life support system for these pods. And he starts to count how many pods, like how far spaced are they?
Based on what you're seeing, based on the size of the corridor, 2,000, 3,000.
There are at least 2,000 to 3,000 similar pods. However, this gentleman or gentlewoman is the only life sign we have.
He's the only empathic profile I'm detecting as well.
GM, can I get a bio reading? Or maybe if there's an interface on this pod that tells us what their status might be?
You can indeed. The good news is since the pod is active, it actually in front of the glass plating or the transparent aluminum plating, whatever you prefer to flavor it as, in front of the plating projected above it is a holographic glyph that sort of changes as you like touch the holographic glyph and move it around. But, you know, Rash kind of steps to the side of you, Razib, and looks at it and goes, all right, you see that one that looks like a banana? Yeah, twist that 30 degrees to the right. No, your other right. There you go. All right, so if I understand this right, and she turns to you, Stetko, do we want to wake them up here or back on the ship?
I would prefer to wake them in an environment that appears to, well,
something friendly, maybe?
Good idea, Commander.
but then again, waking them up around the deceased party that they were traveling with could also be disruptive to their well-being. Are we detecting this life form throughout the entirety of the ship?
The vines, yes.
Okay. Let's see if we can transport them to the sick bay on the Euthenia.
All right, Razib, do we want to bring the pod with them, or are we just going to beam them straight out of the pod into sick bay?
Well, there's no telling what kind of life support he's on if they're on.
Well, no, they're on a class 4. I know a class 4 when I see one.
I appreciate that, but it's hard to emulate a class 4 life support in the confines of a sick bay when we already have a very nice tube right here that can just lay in the floor.
Well, I guess that's my answer. All right, if you want to wake them up, you see that banana symbol, you're going to rotate it 360 degrees clockwise, and then you're going to push it in and simultaneously pull that glyph that looks like a monkey or maybe a cat. Some four-legged animal. You're going to pull that out.
It is a cat.
Commander?
Razim?
And as you go through the motions, the pod begins to sort of warm up a little bit. It begins to hiss ominously as gases begin to roll out as the pod begins to open. And Matthew, your character is now coming to consciousness in view of 4 very, very strange-looking individuals. You see I hesitate to use the word human because that feels like a cheating way to describe it, but you see a human who you don't know is half Betazoid. You see, for lack of a better term, a cat person. You see a small gremlin-like individual. And then you see an orange alien with 3 arms and 3 legs.
Although there's barely any discernible reaction on this entity's face, you see that there's a twitching of various different muscles that have no comprehensible analog inside the features with which you're familiar. So there's muscle groupings under the skin that are moving that really don't compare to anything that a human would actually possess. And then in a voice that's almost not really a voice, but some kind of facsimile of it, as if you're listening to electrical popping or the flow of electricity, and it's wavering in such a way as to create a facsimile of a voice or something that is very vaguely suggestive of it, that your own mind is turning into a voice. It asks, "What are you? Why are you on my vessel?" And
However,
just even before you have the chance to answer, there's this clear expression of shock and terror that is registered by Watney, or by our Betazoid first officer, as he sees these tendrils throughout the ship.
Razib will step back and lower the tricorder and the scanner in a gesture of, I mean you no harm. However your people respirate, focus on that now. Soras, I'm not sure if the universal translator will capture everything clearly.
So Russ will be checking if the universal translator is working.
98%.
You have not answered my question. What are you, and why are you on board my ship? What has happened?
I am a doctor. We are part of a rescue party. This is my commander, Stetko, and my science officer, Soras. We found your ship just a few hours ago and came aboard. You were one of the life signs that we registered first.
It was an SOS signal, sir. We responded to it.
And how many have survived this?
So far, you are the only one we have been able to recover.
And again, Watney, you would feel an overwhelming melange of different emotions, ranging from rage, grief, and also a strange sense of relief commingling with that terror. But again, there is no facial indication thereof. If there is an expression on its face, it's not something that's comprehensible to a human. What kind of tactical abilities does your vessel possess?
I believe I would like to defer that to my commanding officer. And Razib would gesture to Commander Stetko.
Someone have a list?
No, tell him. He's got no business knowing that.
Rash does look at Stetko as if hearing William's voice across the ether and goes, I mean, I installed pretty much every single weapon we've got. You want me to tell him? Or them? Or... Sorry, what is your name?
And he looks down at this minuscule creature. I am Vizeth.
All right. Vizeth? I'll have to work on that. I'm terrible at new names, but I'll make it work. So, you know what? I got it. I'll call you Viz until I figure out a better way to say your name. So, Viz.
Why are you concerned?
Yeah, why do you need to know our weapons complement?
This vessel was engaged in a conflict with forces from my homeworld. They intended to enter into, I presume, the system that we find ourselves in now, to cleanse it of two servitor races, the Demyth and the Eso. They were deemed unnecessary. Their resources were to be appropriated. We attempted to prevent our people from doing this. I was injured in the conflict, and I have no idea what's happened to the vessel since I lost consciousness. Someone must have placed me in one of the restorative pods, but
Your mission likely was successful. We just engaged with both of those servitor races.
Even if we were successful at rebuffing the initial assault, my people will come. They will not leave valuable resources unexploited.
I see. Well, we detected your ship was adrift. There was an SOS. We came to wake you up. We're happy to render aid.
I doubt if you would be capable of rendering me any aid beyond transport. It is unlikely that your technology would be at all comparable to our own.
All right, hold on. Oh, sorry. I don't know why I do this at the worst possible times, but Humor me. What technology does your vaunted weaponry use? Are we talking tachyons? Are we talking antiprotons? What else? I can't even think of another one. Is it energy based? Is it projectile based? What are we talking about here, big man?
This vessel employs a series of artificial quantum singularities that power a wave motion cannon that runs through the length of most of this vessel. It draws energy from subspace pockets and condenses them into a series of black holes that are then, or micro black holes, that are then evaporated. The resulting energy is released through a series of capacitors that are overcharged, and the energy that is produced is sufficient to destroy most reasonable-sized continents of M-class planets.
Rash looks at you, takes all that in, slowly reaches for her thermos, unscrews it, pours herself a cup, sips it, looks at Setko. I only understood about half of that.
And I'm guessing you want to understand the other half.
Oh, I want to know everything about what was just said, yes.
All right. Well, even if we seem useless to you from a tactical perspective, we're happy to offer transport. We are adrift in our own way in this area of the galaxy. We're from the Alpha Quadrant. And we're making our way home.
Do you have a superior officer with whom I can speak on board your vessel?
Yes, Captain Williams.
He looks around at the dilapidated hallways, the burst paneling, these tendrils that, again, you get that little sense of terror associated with them and confusion. I believe we should leave this place. I will speak with your captain, explain the situation, and then we can begin to salvage some of the resources and technologies that remain on, I presume, a vessel that has been lost.
All right. She taps her comm badge. Transport room 5 to transport.
Say again, 5?
5.
Aye, sir.
6. No.
Transporter chief does hesitate, like, sorry, say again, 6? I'm not detecting a 6th.
5 to transport.
Okay, I'm gonna go with 5, and if I miss someone, not my fault. And transporter
Am I
chief.
missing someone? There's 5 tokens.
You're 5.
Okay.
It's Dag messing with you.
Dag's messing with his own brain, and apologies.
I'm like, there are 4 lights. Like,
Nice.
That's it. Game over.
Nice. All right. So my first question before I start doing any scene changes, where do you want to meet the captain? Do you want to meet him in a ready room? Do you want to meet him in a conference room? Do you want to go to sick bay? Where do you want the meeting with the captain to take place? And that's an open question for everybody, because I want to make sure everybody has the ability to chip in, but if Williams or Stetko or if Viz wants, a personal one-on-one scene with the captain, I'm here to accommodate you all.
I think astronomy, astrometrics, I'm sorry,
Astrometrics
would be kind of cool. So we can do like visual displays of where things might be in proximity to ourselves.
Sure.
Thoughts?
I think that's cool. Let's do it. All right. So let me just throw tokens on the map here. But everybody is here. Saras, you're here. Razib, you're here. Williams, you've just walked in with Dorothy floating in behind you. And then we have Mr. Viz, who is center stage. And to sort of set the scene here, so Viz, you've been led to what is actually not that far off of your own species astrometrics labs. I mean, it's a little outdated. It's the equivalent of, say, a Model T car with a new Hyundai Sonata kind of a thing, but it's the same basic principle. I mean, there's only so many ways you can chart the stars. But you're sort of looking at the star maps they have currently displayed when Captain Williams steps in and Dorothy floats in, and Dorothy says, "Oh, that would be him, sir." Or them, sir. They haven't really told us yet. I'm sorry.
That's fine, Dorothy. And Williams will cross the floor and stand about arm's length away from Viz, sort of regard him for a moment and say, I'm Captain R.J. Williams. I'm in command of this vessel.
I am Vizeth. I was the tactical officer of the vessel that you've discovered here.
Well, I'm pleased to see that you're all right. Although I'm sorry for the rest of your crew.
They're dead. It's in the past. We move on.
Very good. And
I like him.
what can we do for you, Vizeth?
There's very little that you can do for me. However, I feel a sense of gratitude for your saving my life and rescuing me from the hulk that remains of my vessel. I feel that you should be aware of the situation into which you have entered.
By all means, elaborate.
And he'll gesture towards the stellar map that he has called up on the astrometric screen. Although your technology is relatively primitive and the resolution of stellar phenomenon is substandard, and he'll gesture towards a cluster of stars and a region of space. The region of space I have delineated here constitutes my people's empire, the Vergeron Empire. And GM, I don't know if you want to elaborate on the nature of that space or its location relative to ours.
I do, yeah. So I'm going to briefly put us back on the Hexcrawl star map, and I've also fixed the overlay because apparently the T in your name got dropped at some point, but it's fixed now. All right, so you all are roughly right about here at this yellow dot. So let me actually shift ping to bring you all up to the right corner. So you all are up there, and again, if you zoom out here just a little bit, I'll be doing some drawing on the map here. But more or less what you're looking at in terms of empire, and I'll go through and make this more pretty in the future, but right now, you're looking at something like this in orange, which would represent the Vergeron Empire as it currently stands. Now, if you want actual sort of distances here, each hex is 10 light years. So you're looking at something that is easily 240 light years across, which, if to put it in perspective, maybe. I know the Federation's 75 light years across. So, yeah, it's large. The point is it's very, very large.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I'll let you guys finish moving, measuring as you want. But when you guys are done measuring, and I'll move us back to astrometrics.
That's oh my gosh. Okay, that's
intriguing.
No, that's a little difficult for me to follow.
What I think is really funny is that it is the diameter of the Federation to get to the middle from the shortcut.
Yeah.
Like
wow,
and 3-month trip, if memory serves.
Mm-hmm.
And how do you say it? Vergeron?
Vergeron, correct, yes.
And this is where you're from.
Yes. My people are aggressively expansionistic. We have an ethos that is predicated on survival of the fittest and mandatory improvements. Our species relies heavily on genetic engineering. We cull those who are genetically unfit, and we impose genetic modifications, oftentimes experimental ones, on large segments of our population to ensure that we are as productive as possible. Individuals, even large groups, are irrelevant. All that matters is the survival and the prosperity of the whole. This ethos has led us to expand beyond our borders and conquer hundreds of other worlds, reducing their inhabitants to chattel slaves or to dust and ash as we exterminate them and take their resources, their technologies, inferior though they may be, and their infrastructure for our own. We are aggressively territorial as a rule. Our species does not cede territory. There is a spiritual connection to it. You are entering into a dangerously hostile region of space. And I have never encountered a species capable of resisting mine other than my own. Although, and he brings up an image of the hulk that remains of his vessel, my compatriots in a rebellion against this tyrannical empire were not successful in resisting them either.
Well, this is certainly dire news.
So, Russ?
Captain, if I may, are we in, per se, any real time crunch to get home?
Not particularly, but
And based on this chart, we could simply fly around the Empire.
that may be a necessity at some point, at least until we're in a position to begin experimentation with the micro wormhole generator. Or if we're able to retrofit a QSD drive.
Rash kind of scratches the back of her head. Yeah, I mean, if you get me the supplies, I can have it ready by next Tuesday, but the supplies are the problem.
It's fine, Rash. I'm more concerned with the fate of the Demyth and the Esso in the face of this expansionist regime that you're warning us of, Vizeth.
It's doubtful that you could actually stop them. If we were unable to, your technology is woefully insufficient to the task.
You know, we've heard that before.
Are there any other ships of your kind who have rebelled against this empire?
Very few, and none that are directly connected to us. Many of us have surmised that the genetic modifications that are imposed upon us from birth and executed time and again as new technologies are developed throughout our lifespans likely contains some form of conditioning on a genetic level that prevents us from formulating a desire to rebel. It's stamped out on the genetic level.
Interesting. Vizeth, I wonder if I could have the benefit of your historical knowledge of your people. According to the Esso, both the Demyth and their race were once servitors, but staged a successful rebellion against the Vergeron, with ships only capable of impulse.
The concerns of running an empire as extensive as the Vergeron may have allowed some insignificant species or worlds to slip through the cracks.
I mean no disrespect, Vizeth, but you have said two very contradictory statements. In one moment you said that your species was fiercely territorial and would never give up any land. And in another sentence you said the empire is too large. I mean not to again be disrespectful, but which is it?
That is an interesting incongruity. What I would say, what was your name?
Oh, I am Saras.
Sarus. The very reason my people are returning to this area of space is because of the rebellion. They are going to slaughter these two races in punishment for their having rebelled.
It's not very nice.
Was it your intent to die fighting that?
If necessary. Even with our advanced coaxial warp drives, it would take time.
Whoa, hold on. Rash actually like jumps up on the console. You've got coaxial warp. What? Hello, what?
Rash,
No, Captain, you got to indulge me on this. You know what
but-
coaxial warp means, right?
yeah, but Rash, the Intrepid class in the 2370s had a coaxial warp drive.
Yeah, but it almost blew them up.
But it didn't.
But it... We'll talk later about that. But if they have a working Vizeth, you and I are going to be talking a lot. Like a lot.
You are the chief engineer of this vessel, I'm given to understand.
Yeah. I designed this ship, put in all the experimental systems myself. This is basically the closest thing I'm going to have to a kid, so yes.
And he looks almost disdainfully over at the astrometrics readouts. Then yes, you do have much to learn from me.
Good, that's what I like to hear. I'm going to stop being a buffoon and I'm going to get down from this console now. And she actually does and goes back to sitting in the corner near Saras.
Well, then we have a decision to make about what it is we do with this information. At the very least, we have a duty to warn the SO and the Demyth about the return of this ancient enemy. But we may have a greater responsibility as Starfleet officers to assist in their defense.
If I may, Captain, I don't believe that you would be able to defend them. The most they can hope for now, after we've delayed the assault, is to escape. They may be able to flee. A mass evacuation of however many people can be loaded onto their vessels.
What were you intending on fighting them with? What was your intent with your ship?
We had much the same plan. If we could blunt the tip of the spear, as it were, if we could deflect the initial assault, we might have been able to give these species time to retreat before a secondary expeditional force of greater number was dispatched.
It seems wrong to just wash our hands after learning about this, and this empire's only going to get bigger. Eventually, the Federation might even have to deal with it.
Indeed. Vizeth, are you able to estimate how much time we have?
And GM, what would you say?
I would say make up a dramatically appropriate number and we'll go with it.
A secondary expeditionary force, on learning of the destruction of the first, and he reviews the chronometric data and the stellar drift charts just to see how much time has passed relative to the destruction of his vessel. They could be here within 3 days. They could be here within 12 hours. Coaxial warp drive enables us to it would enable us to get here almost immediately. It's difficult for me to say. I'm sorry.
And the captain will nod and he'll tap his comm badge. And Williams to Bridge, lay in a pursuit course for the Demyth and SO carriers. Hail them and tell them that we need to talk.
Clarify, sir. They've headed to 2 separate planets at this point. Should we go after the Esso or the Demyth?
Which is closer at the moment?
That would be the Esso world, sir.
All right, set a course for the SO homeworld.
Aye, sir.
Captain, before you engage, may I say that there are a number of technologies, even in fragmentary form, on my vessel. The particle wave cannon that I described, my coaxial warp drive, that might be of use to you. If we can salvage something from my vessel, it might improve your odds of survival.
We can't miss this opportunity, sir.
Agreed.
If time is of the essence, might I recommend a group stay back?
And I think
Quite
Rash
agreed,
actually
Commander.
stands up at that and says, if I may, Sarus, you feel like getting your hands dirty?
Always.
All right.
I'm assigning a security team to you.
Probably a
Aye.
good thing, yeah.
Well, Commander, that security team is going to be the Euthenia.
Sir?
Very well.
I'll take a Shikara's escort to the SO homeworld and open talks with them myself. Commander Setko, in the meantime, you'll stay here in command of the Euthenia and oversee the salvage effort.
We just engaged in battle with the situation. Are you sure that that's safe?
Trust me.
So Sarus looks like torn in this moment. He's like, looks at Rash, looks at the captain, looks at Rash, looks back to the captain. Captain, I would like to request that I accompany you on your away mission. I do have some expertise when it comes to negotiations. I think I could be of more use to you than I could be to taking apart this nice man's ship.
Rash, can you spare him?
And Rash looks really downtrodden, but there's that moment where she like looks at Sarus and winks and says, I mean, I guess, if he really wants to go with you.
All right. And if it's all the same, Vizeth, I'd like you to accompany us.
On a diplomatic mission?
Indeed.
I believe that I would serve you better in helping your crew disassemble critical components from my ship.
Do you believe you have sufficient technical expertise to do that?
I understand the weapon systems on board my vessel and have worked in its engineering section as well.
And I think Rash actually turns to Dorothy at this. Dorothy, you finished processing? And Dorothy goes, well, one way to find out. Vizeth, if you'd mind looking at this. And she kind of flicks her hands out, and a holographic representation of your destroyed vessel appears in the space where the holomap was. And you see that all the areas are highlighted. Like, one area is highlighted as being part of the wave motion gun. One area is highlighted as being part of the coaxial warp drive. It's only missing about 2 or 3 things, but it seems to be all highlighted in some way, shape, or form.
And there's a sort of flaring of new musculature around the top of Vizeth's head as he looks over at Dorothy. You are an artificial construct, a photonic being?
More artificial, not so much photonic, but yes. Do you have those in your culture?
No, we don't particularly care for them. Artificial forms of life are shunned. We are proponents of biological evolution and its advancement by way of genetic modification. As a result...
Lovely. We're going to be amazing friends then.
Nonetheless, I wanted to compliment you. That is impressive work. I'm certain that you will be able to extract the necessary components even without me, if this is any indication.
Cool. And then Dorothy does like a mini squeak. She's like, hey, I did it, yay. And then she composes herself. Sorry. Captain, I can have the Shikaris excerpt prepared. Couple minutes if you need it.
Prep it ASAP. We'll leave immediately.
Done. And with that, as the two separate away teams begin to fragment and go their separate ways, I think that's where we're going to take our 5 to 10 minute break. We'll be back shortly. Stick around. Welcome back, everybody, to part 2 of Session 6 of Star Trek Euthenia. If you're just joining us, well, we've introduced Matthew's brand new character, a member of the Vergeron, a species that is entirely imperialistic and about to destroy the really cute slime cube creatures and the moth people. And Captain Williams intends to do something about that. So, Mr. Williams, Mr. Saras, and Vizeth have clambered aboard a Shikaris escort and journeyed toward the SO homeworld, while the rest of the Euthenia crew works to salvage the ship that Vizeth was found on. But we resume our little story proper with Williams, Saras, and Vizeth. You're about 20 minutes out. You can, of course, increase your speed to get there quicker, but you're about 20 minutes out from the SO homeworld proper. And at the moment, I'd like to flavor that, Williams, you're actually at the helm here.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I think he'll actually spare a look over to Vizeth, who I imagine just sort of, perhaps due to equal parts coincidence and instinct, has actually assumed the tactical console of the Shikaris escort. And I sort of have this image of him sort of assimilating the interface extremely quickly. Not literally assimilating, it's not the Borg, but gets to know it and become familiar with it, and perhaps even runs through some simulated firings. And the captain just sort of looks over at him as he does this and says, "You're a remarkably quick study, Viz."
My intelligence quotient has been enhanced through multiple rounds of genetic modifications. Indeed, my fast-twitch muscle fibers and reflexes have been similarly enhanced. I am the sum of my genes and all the others that have been added to my genome.
Interesting. And you're physically augmented as well as mentally.
That is correct. I am capable of extreme bursts of physical strength and ability, and possessed of an enhanced metabolism that allows me to recuperate from injuries and ailments more quickly than would an unaugmented version of my species, although I don't believe that any such person exists.
Interesting. Well, perhaps one of these days we'll test your assumption about your physical superiority on the holodeck.
What is a holodeck?
A recreational facility. We can create photonic landscapes to simulate different places that we have been or can imagine.
And at that, Vizeth actually looks out towards the starfield that is slowly rolling by. My species does not have cause to engage in recreational activities. That would be an inefficient use of our time. It would detract from what we can offer to this civilization as a whole.
Have you ever stopped to think that maybe it's not always about what you can offer the civilization and what your civilization can offer you?
You give me your best
No.
Kennedy impersonation, I'll give you 2 momentum.
Here, I can only do Mea Quimby.
Close enough. But no, I think Wolf, you had something there. Okay. All right.
That seems inordinately selfish. The tactical systems on this vessel, should we be prepared to use them? You said that you engaged in conflict with the indigenous people in this system.
Well, we believe it was a misunderstanding, and by the end of the conflict, we weren't directly responsible for any casualties, and were able to establish a dialogue. Speaking of which, Russ, have they answered our hails?
Have they answered our hails?
Nope.
No, Captain, they have not. However, Viz, I did have one question for you. In your species, how often is this for one of your kind to go, well, for lack of a more scientific term, insane?
I don't have any kind of statistical information regarding the prevalence of mental illness. However, it is a known side effect of certain genetic modifications that were then phased out through cullings of the experimental population.
Interesting. Turns back and will continue to try to contact the blobs.
And I think the captain's also going to request that Russ run some long-range scans to determine if the SO are, say, mobilizing for some sort of military response to the ship.
Shall I make a
And
roll
yes,
for that,
actually, I'm going to give this to you free.
Oh.
You don't have to really do a roll here to see that they are deploying multiple carriers to meet you halfway between where you're coming from and the planet itself. So you're actually going to be intercepted in about 5-10 minutes rather than the 20.
Captain, they are rolling out the red carpet for us, I think.
Well, that's a hell of a welcome wagon for a small escort craft, but let's put our best foot forward, shall we? And the captain will begin to decelerate so that it doesn't look like an aggressive charge into their territory.
So, as you slow down, the carriers almost seem to speed up, and it's one of those classic Star Trek shots where we just see, these big 3 ships next to the little tiny one. And as you're looking at the holes outside, you start to get a incoming hail.
Captain,
Perfect.
they are hitting us.
Well, let's bring it up.
And appearing on screen is Squick, your gelatinous cube buddy. Still with the chair inside of him, of course, because he hasn't gotten rid of it yet.
So Russ is going to lean back and be like, Schwick, it is good to see you. And then
It's good to see you too, Mr. Saras. I'm very happy to see you as well. And then they look at Vizeth, and the green cube turns white. I mean ghost white. And
Squick.
their line of dialogue just shuts off immediately. I mean, the hail is still open, but their stream just stops.
Squick, this is Captain Williams. I need you to listen very carefully to me. The individual to my right is named Vizeth. He's a member of a race called the Vergeron. He's come to your system to warn you that his people are returning to enslave you. We need to do something about that before it's too late. Now, we're here to help. Will you let us?
All right, so here's what I'm going to do, because you've said almost the right thing, but it's still something where I'm interested to see whether or not you cause him to panic, Squick to panic. So
Sure.
Why don't we treat this as a presence and a command?
Okay.
And how would you feel? Oh, what you got?
I'd like to assist
Mhm.
by doing
The cube?
cube-like movements behind the captain, as though I am trying to translate in gelatinous cube for Schwick to calm him down.
Tell you what. I'll let you do that, but the complication range will become 18 to 20.
Calming movements.
Well, yeah.
Calming cube noises.
Yeah.
What should I roll? Presence?
For you, it would be a presence science. I'm going to set the difficulty at a 5 here. I think this is one of those moments where you either do it right or, you don't do it right. But you have full momentum. That's the good news. And you have Saras assisting you.
So
Empathy.
I will give you empathy, yeah.
I am going to do...
Boom.
And we do have a complication that'll happen regardless, but let's see if you succeed on this first.
So I want to leverage a couple of Captain Williams' talents here,
All
or
right, what you
rather
got?
one in particular.
Ooh, there's a reason I helped. Real quick, Aaron, before you go.
Yep, go for it.
Disarming nature. When gaining trust, -1 difficulty, so that 5 is a 4. So you only need 3 successes.
Boom. Love it.
Perfect. And I would also like to use my talent, Diffuse the Tension.
Which lowers it again.
No, actually, that lets me add a bonus d20 to my die pool.
Ah, okay, so you're at 3d20 to start with.
And I'm also going to use Determination.
Okay, starting with 2 free successes.
2.
Which value?
I'm going to use the value that I said earlier, which is Trust Me.
Trust me. Okay.
You
So,
only need 1 more success, Captain.
yeah, you only need the one more.
All right.
Just in the background doing cube shapes.
Yep. And I assume my focus in diplomacy would come into play here.
No, why would anybody use... Yes. Yeah. Yeah.
Here we go.
All right, let me check those zeros, because again, 18 to 20.
One's a complication.
All right, so that's going to be
Roll
2
it.
complications on the field then. All right, cool. All right, let's see. All right. So, Squick, he still stays white, but he talks the slowest you've ever heard him talk. And he says, "Okay, you have a member of the Vergeron here. That is unexpected. We do not know how to interact with the Vergeron. You said that they are returning."
Oh, his race as a whole has apparently a sight set on reconquering your home system. Now, Vizeth is what you would call a political dissident. He's against his people on this matter, and he came to assist you, or at least to repel his people from doing what they're keen on doing.
This is not good. This is not good. This is not good. This is the wrong vibe. This is wrong. This is wrong. And you see like the cube begin to shrink just a little bit, like it's kind of collapsing in on itself. And the normal happy face is now turned to a frown. This is not good. We are doomed. We are doomed. We must escape. We must escape. And they just start repeating over and over and over again until you either say something to break it or do something to break it.
I'm going to just motion to Russ on this one because Russ obviously has a rapport.
Quick, it is your friend Saras. Watch the cube. Escape would not be a bad idea. How many ships in your fleet, and how many of your kind can each carry? Also, how many on your planet? I'm going to try to be very direct about what I'm asking him, and I'm simply going to give him the suggestion, like, if they have enough ships, like, we just bug out.
Right. I think that's going to be the complication, or at least one of them. So one of them was him sort of clamming up, but the other complication from chat will be that when Squick finds his voice again, he says, there are approximately 300 ships that could carry approximately 4 million Squick, or 4 million SO. That would only be 1/10 of our population.
Then, no, Russ, no, go ahead.
Noted. And he will look to the captain.
Squick, I'm going to propose a radical suggestion. Your race, the SO, and the Demyth must become allies if you're going to survive this.
I do not understand. What do you mean become allies? How could we become allies? We've been estranged for so long. I don't quite understand how we could do that.
Necessity is the mother of invention and innovation, Squick. And
I'm sorry, the universal translator must not be working. What about my mother?
it often has trouble with metaphors.
Hold on, I think Vizeth has something. What do you got, Matthew?
Just interjecting into the captain's speech, would it be possible for me to use the talent of that we discussed in terms of my role?
Yeah,
so
I'll let it
kind of
happen.
like the intelligence officer. So reducing perhaps the difficulty of his attempt to convince them to accept the captain's plan, he's going to rise and say, "I know of your people and their They're myths. When you drove off the great dragon, there is a story of a woman who is pregnant with a child. She rises up into the air and flees on the wings of an eagle. Yes? You are the children of the Demyth, their creation. That ancient legend foretells of this precise moment, when parent and child flee from the dragon and hide in the wilderness together.
And I think with that, with you creating that advantage, Squick begins to slightly turn green again, that normal green that he was. And he says, that is correct. That is one of our base myths that we hold in high value. Yes, we can do that, yes. However, I do not think that I quite have the authority to just unilaterally declare that we could be allies again. I'm not sure how I would do that, Mr. Vizeth or Captain Williams. I am not sure.
Squick, do you have a high command?
Yes, I can connect you to the High Chancellor.
Then please do so, and keep the chair.
I was going to say something about the chair, but I think Squick is a little preoccupied.
Yeah.
But the transmission changes, and you're still seeing a cube on screen, but just based on what you're seeing around it, it's a much larger cube. To put it in D&D terms, if Squick was a medium creature, this is now a gargantuan-sized cube. And it's red in color, still has that comical little smiley face feature to it, but it also has a metal crown that's just kind of floating in and out of the top of its head, I guess you would call it. But again, in a very quick and rapid tone, very quick voice, but a little bit more deep to it, says, I understand that you wanted to speak with the High Chancellor. My name is High Chancellor Vizeth. No, sorry. That can't be right. And there's actually a pause there where Vizeth, you, Matthew, you realize that the SO might have taken your name by accident. And that tends to mean that something is wrong with the SO, if you get where I'm going with that. I can explain further if you're not getting it, but something is wrong for them to make that mistake.
Yeah, I'm not picking up what you're
not getting it. All right, I'll explain it a little bit more. So what you know about the SO is that they are a imitative species to some degree. Mm-hmm. But for them to go so far to mix up names like that, either they're very nervous or something like we discussed yesterday, something like that is in play here.
Can we cut the comms? Yeah. I believe that something might be influencing the minds of the SO. Can you perform long-range scans of their world, looking for any aberrant psychological influences or radiation waves?
But of course. Control science?
Reason science. Difficulty of 4, but the escort will assist you with a sensor science.
I'm going to spend 1, 2, 3 momentum.
All right, well, you got an assist from the ship.
Good job, ship. Oh, yeah.
All right, that is 5 successes, meaning you get a momentum back. So, actually, Saros, now that you sort of scan the homeworld and you take a look at what's on sensors, yeah, there's a radiogenic field that's enveloping not just the SO homeworld, but the Demyth homeworld as well.
We get 2 more back. I will explain that to the captain. I would also, my free question as science officer, I would like to see if there is a power source for it that we could identify, or like a power structure, so we could find the power source and then potentially, maybe turn it off.
So the power source isn't something that you can localize, but what I will say is that there's a point in space between the two planets that's reading awfully like a miniature black hole.
Captain, there is a miniature black hole, I believe, in between the two planets that is giving off this power structure or signal that is creating a kind of field that is affecting the two species.
Vizeth, is that indicative of a tactic of your people?
Captain, we should leave this region of space.
Damn. So, GM, just taking a glance over the sensor readings myself.
Yep.
I mean, what is it looking like? Is it a vessel? Is it an aperture for transport? Is it, because these things, I mean, artificial black holes don't just spring up out of the ground, as it were.
So, and this is sort of playing my head a little bit here, but if you've been paying attention, you know how I keep introducing black holes. It's not just because I like the things. This is your meta plot for the season. So I can't answer the question outright, but what I will tell you is that for that to be there does mean something. Now, what that something means, you have to discover on your own. But what I will also tell you is that the field that is enveloping the planets, the best descriptor I could give is it's not mind control, but it's almost like the thing that Watney, what Stetko was experiencing with that ominous presence at the back of her mind.
And I think as he is watching the captain examining the sensor readings, trying to determine the nature of the anomaly that has been detected, Vizeth would stand and review those sensor readings for a moment as well and say, Captain, of such great powers or beings in this universe, there may conceivably be a survival of a remote period where consciousness was manifested in shapes and forms that have long since withdrawn from the advance of civilized societies. In short, there are things in this universe that are not meant to be seen or trifled with. We're perilously close to one of them. We should leave now.
Ross, send a message to the Euthenia, advising them of our status, and then modulate the deflector. I have an idea.
Boop, 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 beep, boop.
And Vizeth, I'll need your help with this as well. Please take the tactical station.
If you intend to fight, Captain, there are some enemies that cannot be overcome.
Fighting isn't a first resort for me. You'll find that in time, if we survive, that is. Russ,
when we survive. Positive thinking. We've discussed this.
Just so. GM, I would like to create advantage.
Spending 2 momentum to do so. Yep. What you like to do?
I would like to propose the advantage that an inverse polaron beam from the main deflector channeled in the general direction of the singularity can weaken the field to a sufficient degree to allow for the free reign of thought, at least on the SO homeworld, while we attempt to warn them.
Sure. Yeah, I'll let it happen, since you spent the 2 momentum to create the advantage. So the only flavor I'm going to give then is that Vizeth, as you're looking at what Captain Williams is proposing, it's crazy. You would have never thought to do it yourself, but the theory is sound. Whether or not it works in practice, well, you're going to have to push the button and find out.
I'm impressed by your innovation, Captain. It's entirely possible that this plan will provide us with enough time to evacuate at least some of the SO. and not something my species would have considered.
Well, I'm sure you have a lot to teach me too. And yeah, I'd like to resume the channel if we could.
Yeah. So when the channel resumes, the High Chancellor is still there, or what did I call him? The High Councilman. Same position, same crown-wearing cube. We all know what it is. But when the cube returns on the screen, kind of vibrates a little bit, does a little bit of a jiggle, and says, "My apologies, I seem to have misidentified myself. My name is High Chancellor Bob." And yes, it is literally Bob.
Well, High Chancellor Bob, my name is Captain R.J. Williams. I'm from the Federation Starship Euthenia.
Yes, I've been briefed upon what you have done for my people, and we really appreciate it, but what matters do you have to discuss with me?
Chancellor, we need to somehow, within the next 12 hours to 3 days, it's impossible to tell, forge a diplomatic alliance between yourselves and the Demyth before the Vergeron return and destroy both your races.
They go just a little bit pink as they get just a little bit white into them. Sorry, say again. You said the Vergeron were coming back?
Yes, I'm sitting with one right here. He's a rebel, and he brought a message of warning for your people, but was unable to do so due to damage to his ship.
Are you sure that's a Vergeron? It doesn't look like a Vergeron. I've never seen a Vergeron that looks like that before.
Well, I'm given to understand that they employ a great deal of genetic engineering, so perhaps the anatomical structure of the Vergeron has changed since I'm sorry, have you seen one?
Yes, there are historical archives on our planet which contain images of them.
Interesting. However, at this point, wholly beside the point, we need to open up a dialogue immediately between yourself and your counterpart on the Demyth homeworld, because a decision needs to be reached if you are going to fight or flee. But that decision is coming, and coming soon. We'll help you either way, but we need to get you two talking.
Well, there is an emergency diplomatic channel for times when we were supposed to be communicating and working with one another. I could open up that line and see if they answer.
I would encourage you to do so.
So on the view screen, it becomes a conference call, as half the screen is Bob and the other half is like a call signal as they call the Demyth homeworld. And after a moment, one of the Demyth, one of those moth people, appears on the screen, and their arms are crossed. Their fur or their fuzz, whatever you'd like to call it, is kind of puffed up. Their little antennae are twitching, and whoever this Demyth is, doesn't sound thrilled. And they said, "Chancellor Bob, what is it you want this time?" "Well, you see, these nice people from the Euthenia have come to tell us that we need to get the hell out of here." "And why is that?" "Well, it's because the Vergeron are back, and if the Vergeron are back, you know that's really bad, and we gotta go. The Demyth takes that in, then looks at you, Williams, and says, "Is this true?"
Yes, to the best of our knowledge, they're on their way now.
How long do we have?
Between 12 hours and 3 days. It's impossible to make an accurate determination at this distance.
Which means we probably actually only have about 6 hours.
So there's a choice to make. Stand and fight, or run.
Oh, there's no choice to be made. We can't fight the Vergeron. There's no way. We can't.
Then you all have 6 hours to evacuate 2 worlds.
And there is the pregnant pause as the weight of those words sinks in. And I think the Demyth, who still hasn't identified themselves, says, "We knew this day would come eventually. We just thought we'd be a little bit more prepared. Maybe if we didn't spend all our time fighting the ESO, we could have... I don't know. It's beside the point. I'm only going to be able to get about 50,000 of my people off-world. Where would we go? And Bob says, well, I don't quite know where we end up going, but maybe we can find a way together. Bob, I've always hated you. I've always hated your species. But in this moment, I think I'm going to have to rely on your optimism. And then, I think, almost as suddenly as it began, the transmission is just going to cut wholesale.
And at this, yeah, if the transmission cuts and we're just sort of left alone on the escort, Williams will sort of regard Vizeth and Saras and say, so in a very short amount of time, the SO and the Demyth will either be annihilated fully by the Vergeron, or flee, leaving massive populations to again be annihilated by the Vergeron. Neither option is acceptable. Vizeth, tell me more about this wave cannon of yours. Is it capable of incapacitating a Vergeron ship?
It is the most devastating weapon that we've ever conceived. Theoretically, it could destroy something vastly more powerful, or at least damage it, than one of our own vessels. However, your power systems are not entirely compatible with the matrices and capacitors of the device. We operate on artificial quantum singularities, you on, from what I've gathered, warp plasma. There isn't enough time to modify your vessel to use the weapon before my people arrive.
GM note
Captain,
from off-screen. There is one thing, if you remember your homework, there is a material that you do have on your vessel that they could use.
Also, Saras has an idea.
Yeah, I was going to say, Saras probably also has an idea.
Vizeth, what if we didn't use our vessel, but, well, let me put it this way. What if we use the power systems from your vessel and channeled it through our vessel to use the weapon? We could link the two together, at least for a short time. Captain, I will say this does run a risk of overloading several of our power couplings, but we would get at least 1 to 2 shots off.
And he's like doing some calculations.
It would be enough to at least perhaps force them into opening a dialogue.
No, it wouldn't.
Or maybe kill them. I don't know.
That would be a possibility, although it would only delay another expeditionary force from being dispatched.
But that would give time to the two species we are trying to save, something that they are severely lacking in.
What if we combined a couple of ideas here? What if we somehow found a way to employ this wave cannon and incapacitate an incoming fleet? Vizeth, are you proficient enough to bluff your own people into believing that the campaign of annihilation has been successful, or at least goes well, if for no other reason than to allow the SO and the Demyth time to stage a full evacuation program?
If we were able to incapacitate one of my people's vessels and take control of its communication systems after we had eliminated the crew or any resistance, we might be able to provide some kind of message coded with the appropriate frequencies to at least delay any further response. However, creation of a working weapon capable of disabling their vessels would likely require a vast quantity of boromite.
Well, it's your lucky day, because we just so happen to have a rather generous quantity aboard my vessel.
That's quite fortuitous, Captain. That may actually be what we require to, if not restore the weapon on my vessel, then in fact create a new one using its parts on yours.
Add a character real quick, just spend 2 momentum, and we'll say that all is true.
Oh no, the momentum got spent. Oh,
What
no.
happened? So I think at this point, just so we can maybe get some time with the other guys, see what they're up to.
Well, that's the thing, is we are coming up where I think we're going to have to make this a 3-parter no matter what we do.
Okay.
So
then as we close out, then I'd like Forster Russ to send that plan to both governments and ask them if they can provide some limited support for our what's going to end up being our delaying action. And I want 2 things from my other away team / the ship / the whole engineering department. I want a working plan on how to incorporate this weapon in under 12 hours. And I want also a working plan on how to get Dorothy into that exocomp, because I think the best way to seize control of a Vergeron vessel would be to use a life form that they have no experience with.
This is me nodding as a GM like, yes, they get it. They get it. So I think our final scene then, before we make this a 3-parter, is Rash gets all of that. She is like elbow deep in ripping out some conduit, and she looks at the pad that the ensign's handed her, and she goes, "Ensign, I've just been told that I have to reinvent the warp core, make a galaxy-destroying gun, and stuff an AI into a robot in 12 hours. Do you understand what you've just given me?" No, ma'am. Good, because I don't either. Let's, I'm gonna need all the coffee. All the coffee. All the coffee, ma'am? All the coffee.
I don't want you to misunderstand me by saying all the coffee that I want a lot of coffee. I need all of it.
All of
Empty
it.
the replicators.
Exactly. And yeah, I think that's where we got to end. That's going to be our 3-parter. But yeah, the only thing I'm going to say is that I'm only going to give you guys, with the SO and the Demyth helping, I'm only going to be giving you 2 Boronite here, because Boronite is like, you'll have the 1 from, your momentum spend, but Boronite is what they use to make the Omega molecule. So you only have but so much of it. But again, it's sort of a mechanic thing. Every single shot that you fire requires 1 charge. So just keep that in mind. But all that aside, I thought that went really well, and I wanted to say thank you again, Matthew, for stellar performance as always. That was really a treat.
Thank you for having me back. It's
Oh my God.
lovely to be here.
It's just everything about life is better that you're here. There it is. Love you, man.
It's a pleasure to have you all in my life once again.
Hell yeah.
Fantastic.
All right. Well, YouTube, this is where we're going to say goodbye. Oh, one quick thing before I say YouTube goodbye. We're going to be off next week because a certain member that may or may not go by Dag or Trek Nexus is getting married. So definitely say congratulations to him on Twitter. But we're going to be off next week because Dag is going to be getting married / honeymooning. So we're going to let him have some R&R. But yeah, so what that means is we will be back proper on November 9th is when we'll be back. But yeah, with that, this is where I'm going to end the YouTube recording, but Twitch stick around because we're going to raid somebody. But YouTube, see you later.